Okay, so if you run an independent venue, you know this feeling, right? Your phone's blowing up, emails are flooding your inbox, and the calendar looks totally packed. You're always busy, but here's the real question. Is all that busyness actually turning into real scalable growth? Today, we're going to dig into how you move from just feeling busy to building a truly data-driven operation that can actually scale. And this quote, man, it just hits the nail on the head. Look, your gut, your instincts, they've gotten you this far, for sure. But there's a ceiling to that. To really grow your venue to the next level, you need something way more reliable. You need data. So let's talk about that ceiling. We like to call it the guesswork ceiling. It's that invisible barrier that so many passionate venue owners slam into, where you're working harder and harder, but you're not really seeing more profit or feeling more in control. It's a ceiling built entirely on assumptions. And it all starts with this feeling. You're running around, dealing with staff, answering a million inquiries, overseeing events. It's just nonstop activity. That feeling of being busy is totally real, but what is all that activity actually getting you? You see inquiries coming in, events are getting booked, so you think, hey, my sales process must be pretty good. But how good is it really? Are you closing 20% of your leads, or is it more like 40%? If you don't have that number, it's just a guess. And this one's a big one. You're putting money into ads, social media, all the directories, and you assume it's bringing in the right clients. But do you actually know which channel isn't just bringing you clients, but your most profitable ones? Because guessing on this, man, that gets expensive fast. Okay, so if instinct is the problem, what's the fix? It's all about becoming data-driven. And I know that term can sound a little intimidating, right? But it's way simpler and honestly way more powerful than you might think. It's all about moving from assumption to real action. Look, being data-driven is not about getting lost in a sea of spreadsheets. It's literally like flipping a switch and turning on the lights in your business. It's about getting this crystal clear view of what's happening so you can see the patterns and make calls based on what's really happening, not just what you feel is happening. All right, so how do you get that visibility? Well, you start by focusing on a handful of numbers that give you the biggest bang for your buck. These are your fundamental tools for growth. So let's dive into these 6 core metrics that are basically the control panel for your entire business. All right, here's the list. I want you to think of this like the dashboard of your car. Conversion rate, revenue per booking, source attribution, response time, booking lead time, and event type profitability. If you can master these 6 things, you master your growth. It's that simple. Okay, first up, conversion rate. This is the bedrock of everything. It's simple, right? You get 100 inquiries, 35 of them turn into actual bookings. Boom, your conversion rate is 35%. But here's why that matters. Once you know your number, you can actually start to improve it. What if you could bump that up to 40%? That little 5% jump, it could totally change your entire year. Without knowing the number, you're just flying blind. Next up, source attribution. In other words, where are your best clients actually coming from? A simple chart like this tells you so much instantly. You can see Google at 40% and Instagram at 25%. Those are your powerhouses. But those paid ads you're running, they're only pulling in 10%. See? This isn't a guess anymore. It's a literal roadmap for your marketing money. You now know where to double down and where to maybe pull back. All right, now for a total game changer. Event type profitability. Because what this chart shows is that not all money is created equal. Yeah, a wedding might bring in a huge chunk of cash, but look, the corporate events could have a way higher profit margin. And that insight lets you focus on what's actually ending up in your pocket, not just on the big flashy sales number. And the other 3 are just as crucial. Response time? Look, speed is a huge competitive advantage. Faster replies mean more bookings, period. Booking lead time? Knowing this helps you predict your cash flow, which that just reduces so much stress. And revenue per booking. Even a tiny increase here adds up to a massive amount over the course of a year. It's the magic of compounding. So you're probably thinking, if this is all so powerful, why isn't everyone doing it? Well, the reason is almost always the same, and it's not a lack of trying. It's a structural problem. We call it the fragmentation problem. So does this look familiar to you? You've got inquiries landing in your email, your bookings are tracked in some spreadsheet, payments go through totally separate software, and you're texting clients on WhatsApp. When all your information is scattered across all these different places, trying to calculate something as simple as your conversion rate becomes this huge, painful manual chore. And so what do? You just give up and go back to using your gut? And that brings us to the final and maybe the most important shift. It's about moving from that chaos to real control. And the key, the absolute key, is centralizing your data. You see, when all your information finally lives in one single place, all these patterns that were hidden before, they just emerge. Suddenly you can see which months are your slowest, which packages are your best sellers, which follow-up email actually gets a response. And those patterns, that's what gives you the leverage to make really smart strategic moves. I mean, just look at the difference here. On the left, you've got instinct-based decisions. It's all reactive. Things are slow, quick. Let's slash our prices. But on the right, you have data-based decisions, strategic. Our data shows a 20% drop-off after the second follow-up. Let's improve our follow-up cadence. You see the difference? One is a panic move. The other is a surgical, smart improvement. And the result of all this? We like to call it the calm forecast effect. Because when your decisions are backed by real data, growth stops feeling like this crazy, chaotic roller coaster. It feels controlled. You can actually see the dips coming, you can plan your marketing with intention, and you can finally replace that constant anxiety with some real confidence. So let's bring this back to you. Right now, this second, could you tell me your venue's exact conversion rate? And I don't mean a ballpark guess. I mean the real, actual number. How about this one? What is your average revenue per booking? Do you know that number? And even more importantly, do you know if it's been going up or down over the last 6 months? And okay, last one. This is the big one. Can you say it without a doubt, which one of your marketing channels is bringing you the clients that are not just your biggest, but your most profitable? Now, if you answered no, or even I think so, to any of those questions, here's the hard truth. You're operating partially blind, and I want you to really let this sink in. Blind growth isn't just inefficient, it is downright risky. The path to that calm, predictable, scalable business you want, it all starts when you decide to finally turn on the lights.